Do 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 do. Hey, how's it going? It's Nancy Gamon. I'm just getting ready to make a birthday card for a friend. The kind of stitched greeting card where I use the sewing machine and fabric and thread, kind of like this one. Only instead of mini pants, I thought I might make something that said, "Happy birthday," or maybe, "You've still got it." Come on, I'll show you how it's done. What we'll need to make this project is a blank greeting card or some cardstock, a swatch of white fabric, a little piece of fusible interfacing that's smaller than the fabric, a swatch of a colorful printed fabric, and a little swatch of double-sided interfacing that will get ironed onto that. You'll need an embroidery hoop, and the white fabric is going to go inside of the hoop, so make sure that it's cut a little bit larger than that. You'll need a sewing machine and everything that goes along with that, thread, scissors, what have you. And you'll also need this special kind of presser foot. It's called a darning foot. And you can see that it has an open, round area that you sew with. This allows you to see. And the shank of the presser foot also is a little bit shorter than your traditional presser foot. So it doesn't rest tightly on the fabric. It sits up a little bit, and that allows you to move the fabric freely underneath it. So the first thing that we're going to do is a little bit of ironing. We're going to get the fusible ironed onto the fabric and the double-sided onto this piece here. Okay, I have my iron heating up off to the side here. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn the colorful fabric so that it's wrong side up, and I'm going to take the double-sided interfacing and put the sticky side down, making sure that that interfacing is a little bit smaller than the fabric. I'm going to grab my iron here and just give it a little pass on the ironing board, get that fusible secured onto the fabric. And then I'm going to take my white fabric. This is single-sided fusible interfacing, sticky side down onto the fabric. I'm going to press this a little bit here and turn it over and press it from the fabric side. Get that smoothed out. That looks good. Whoop, a little wrinkly. Give it another press here. All right, then I'm going to take my scissors that I have magically off to the side here and cut this pretty fabric into a nice little blobby oval shape. So I'm just going to free form this, cutting both the paper here and the fabric. And this is going to form the background for the card. So I want to make sure I've got this opening the right way here. And I want the blob to have maybe a ½ inch or so on each side because I'm going to stitch around it with the sewing machine. I just need to get the paper off here. Get the fabric positioned how I want it. This is the top of the card. And we'll iron this on while we've got the iron hot. Okay, and that's good to go. So we'll set that aside, and the next thing to do is just to get this fabric into our embroidery hoop. So one of these, this little golden area loosens or tightens the hoop. It's got two rings to it. So I'm going to put the larger ring underneath. The interfacing is down. And I'm going to put the smaller ring inside and just press it into the ring so that the fabric's nice and taut, and then I'm going to turn the screw there so that it's secured. And this is what's going to go into the sewing machine, and we're going to sew right on this hoop. So now let's move over to the machine and get started there. Any kind of sewing machine will do free motion embroidery. Either lower the feed dog so that it's smooth across here and the teeth aren't pulling the fabric forward, or just set your stitch length to 0, and that will keep the machine from moving the fabric and allow you to move it freely. So I've got on my darning foot, I've got black thread in the top and in the bobbin, I've got my hoop here, and I'm just going to slip my hoop under here and lower the presser foot. So you can see, even with the presser foot all the way down, there's still room for me to move the hoop around. And I like the idea of you've still got it, so I think I'm going to stitch that. I do have the needle set so that when I stop stitching it'll be in the down position. If your machine will do that, that's nice and handy. So I'm just going to hold the thread off to the side with one hand while I get started, and I'm going to stitch the letters. So I'm taking a couple stitches here just to kind of secure it. And I can see that my bobbin thread has pulled up, and so I'm just going to kind of move that off to the side as well. If I can get it under there. I'm going to lift this up. There we go. Oops. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to start stitching. I'm going to go back and get my apostrophe. And then move on to the still. And go back and get my dot on my eye. And then I'm going to start a second line for got it. And I can see that this thread is going to get in the way of my T, so I'm just going to snip it here and get this loose part out of the way so I can keep going. And I'm going to jump over and do my it. Like the way that I turned out, I'm going to go back and do that a little bit more. And then do my dot. And there we go. You've still got it. And I've still got some trimming to do. So I love these little scissors. They're curved at the tip, and it just makes it so nice and easy to get in and trim things super close to stitching. And so once I get these all snipped off, then my piece will be ready to trim and to stitch onto the greeting card. All right, so there we go. You've still got it. Okay, now we're ready to trim this and get it stitched onto the card. So I'm going to take it out of the hoop just by loosening this screw and popping this out. Okay, I have one more little thread to trim here, and I'm going to just get a couple of the long ones off the back side here as well so that they don't show through on the front of the card. Okay. Then I'm going to cut this into a blob as well, something that will fit into the colorful fabric shape that we've got already ironed onto the card. Let's see how that looks. Got my card over here. Looks like that will fit in okay. My stitching's a little wonky. That means artistic. Okay, so I'm going to change my presser foot here, get off that darning foot and just get on a regular everyday old presser foot. I have my feed dog lowered, so I'm going to press the button that lets that come back up again. And I'm also going to change the needle because what I have in now is a sewing needle, obviously, and I want to change it out for one that I usually just use for paper. If I can find it over here. There we go. Because sewing on paper just dulls the needle so quickly, and using one just for paper kind of protects your needles that you're using for your fabric. Okay, so I think we're all set here. I've got my text. I'm just going to open up the card, so I'm only stitching on one layer, of course, and I'm going to get my fabric kind of situated how I'd like it to be. I'm going to trim that a little bit more on that corner there so that it's a more pleasing shape. And that looks pretty good. So I like to start stitching kind of off on the left hand side there where it's not going to be so noticeable, the start and stops. And I'm just lining up the white shape with kind of the inside of the presser foot there. I'm going to set my stitch real long, almost kind of a basting stitch. So on my machine that's a number 4. And I'm going to start stitching the fabric, oops, big glob of dust there, to the card. I'm just sort of gently rotating the card as I go along. And I am trying to sort of pull this fabric, this white fabric, taut as I go. And that's going to be especially important as I round this curve and get down to the other side. I'm going to really try and keep smoothing it out as I go. Otherwise, when I get back to the starting point, I'm going to get a little pucker. And so I'm trying to keep that from happening by very firmly smoothing this out as I go around. Well, I think we're going to have some success here. I'm just smoothing, smoothing, pulling it tight. How about that? Worked out just right. I'm going to get up to the end here and just make a couple of back stitches, and then I'm going to raise up my needle and move the card out. This time I'm going to line up the fabric with the inside edge of the presser foot here, and I'm going to stitch around the outside. Thread out of the way. This outside stitching serves absolutely no purpose. It's not holding anything to anything. A couple of more back steps here. It is purely decorative. What I have found is that I personally just liked the look of that little extra row of stitching on the outside that made it look like the whole card was stitched. When I stitched it on the inside, I just didn't care for the look so much. So you can see on the inside of the card here, we've got a couple of ovals from our stitching. And I'm just gonna, whoop, I guess that one's already trimmed. Trim the thread there. And there we go. There's our finished card, ready for giving. Hey, listen, if you like the idea of stitched greeting cards, but you don't have time to make some yourself right now, check out my website at nancygamon.com. You can see the current selection of handmade goodies. Remember, you've still got it. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.